some aircraft just, they get stuck in your head. And for a lot of people, the F-14 Tomcat, well, it's right up there.
Definitely.
Whether it's that engine roar or just seeing a Top Gun, it's just legendary. Talking serious speed, some really cutting-edge capabilities for its day.
And it's a legend that's mostly in museums now, or maybe flying virtually, though, yeah, apparently a few are still operational over in Iran.
It really is amazing how the Tomcat still fascinates people, even though it hasn't flown with the U.S. Navy for years now.
Right. It wasn't just another plane, was it? It marked a real turning point, showing off some seriously innovative tech that filled a really critical need back then.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. You, listening, you've probably wondered what made it so special, why it's got this huge place in aviation history.
Yeah.
So our goal here is to give you a solid understanding of the F-14, where it came from, what made it tick, its impact, without getting bogged down in, super technical jargon.
And to do that, we've pulled together quite a few sources. We've got a YouTube video, 13 true facts about the F-14 Tomcat. There's an intergalactic article, everything you need to know about the Navy's F-14 program.
Okay.
A page from the Naval History and Heritage Command on the F-14A specifically. The big Wikipedia entry, of course.
Always useful.
Yeah, and a look at the F-14D from the National Air and Space Museum, plus a piece from Northrop Grumman themselves called Lights, Camera, Tomcat, about its movie fame.
So, a good mix. Our plan, then, for this deep dive is to walk through the whole F-14 story. Why was it needed? What was clever about the design? How did it perform? Its combat record, the different versions that came out, that massive cultural impact we mentioned, and where you can still find one today.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, let's kick off with the big picture. What was going on that made the Navy think, we need something like the F-14?
Right. Well, you have to remember the context. It's the Cold War. The Navy was getting seriously worried about Soviet long-range bombers and patrol aircraft.
Like the Bear bombers.
Yeah, exactly. Things like the Tu-95 Bear. These planes could potentially launch missiles against U.S. carrier groups from way outside the range of the fighters the Navy had at the time. They needed something that could reach out and intercept these threats far, far away from the fleet.
And the F-14 was built precisely for that job, especially with those famous long-range missiles, the Phoenix.
The AIM-54 Phoenix, absolutely. That missile was revolutionary. It could hit targets over 90 miles away.
90 miles.
And the AWG-9 radar system in the F-14 could track and engage multiple targets at the same time. It gave the carrier group this huge defensive bubble, much bigger than anything they'd had before.
Changed the game entirely.
It really did. It made the Soviets rethink how they'd even approach a U.S. carrier group. And to carry those big missiles and still be fast enough for intercepts, Grumman used another key piece of tech, the variable sweep wing.
Ah, the swing wings. That's the F-14's signature look, isn't it? How did that work, and why was it so important, beyond just making it look cool?
It looked very cool. But yeah, it was highly functional. The wings could swing forward, fully extended, which gave it lots of lift for slower speeds, crucial for taking off and landing on a carrier, or just loitering on patrol efficiently.
Okay, so good for low speeds.
Right. Then, for a high-speed intercept, the wings would sweep back, sometimes way back, reducing drag dramatically. That's how it could hit speeds over Mach 2.
Mach 2.34, wasn't it?
Around there, yeah. Mach 2.34. So the swing wing gave it that versatility, good handling, low and slow, but also incredible speed when needed. It did add complexity and weight, though. It was a trade-off.
Sounds like they were really pushing the boundaries. And given how urgently they needed this plane, I bet the development was under pressure.
Oh, absolutely. The contract Grumman signed had some really tough clauses. We're talking huge financial penalties if they missed targets for things like the plane's empty weight, acceleration times, how far it could escort other planes, even the approach speed for carrier landings, maintainability, and crucially, the delivery date. They were fined for every day they were late.
That's serious pressure. Now, Grumman had played with swing wings before, hadn't they? This wasn't totally out of the blue for them.
That's right. They'd worked on the XF-10F Jaguar prototype earlier, which also used variable geometry wings. That project didn't go into production, but the experience was definitely valuable when they tackled the F-14.
Gave them a head start, maybe.
Probably. And interestingly, the first engines they used were the Pratt & Whitney TF-30s, the same ones used in the F-11. That also points to trying to get things moving quickly using an existing engine.
And it being Grumman, it had to be named after a cat, right? Hence Tomcat.
Exactly. They had the Wildcat, Hellcat, Bearcat. Tomcat fit right in. First flight was December 1970. And it was designed from the outset as a two-seater.
Pilot up front, RIO in the back?
Yep, pilot and radar intercept officer. That RIO was crucial for managing that powerful AWG-9 radar and the complex weapons, especially the Phoenix.
Let's go back to those wings for a second. You said they sweep automatically from 20 to 68 degrees?
Mostly, yes. There was a Central Air Data Computer, the CDC. Think of it as the flight brain. It monitored airspeed, altitude, angle of attack, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it would automatically adjust the wing sweep for the best performance in whatever phase of flight they were in, optimize lift and drag.
Clever. Could the pilot control it too?
Yes, they could manually override the automatic system if they needed to for tactical reasons. And for parking it on a crowded carrier deck, the wings could sweep even further back to 75 degrees. They actually tucked in over the tail stabilizers to save space.
That is smart engineering.
Yeah.
Anything else unusual about the design? I thought I read something about the controls, like no ailerons.
That's correct. No traditional ailerons on the wings for roll control. Instead, at lower speeds, spoilers on top of the wings would pop up to make it roll.
Okay.
And at higher speeds, the entire horizontal tail surfaces, the stabilators, would move differentially. They called them tailerons because they acted as both elevators for pitch and ailerons for roll.
Ailerons, okay.
And of course, being a carrier jet, it needed incredibly strong landing gear to handle those catapult launches and arrested landings. Plus, it had an internal 20mm M61 Vulcan cannon for close-in fighting.
So just packed with tech. Let's talk performance numbers. It was a big plane. I think one source called it a porky boy.
Yeah. One's
Empty weight over 43,000 pounds. Max takeoff over 74,000. But how did it actually fly? Fast, agile.
Despite the size, it was seriously high performance. That top speed, Mach 2.34, is way faster than its replacement, the F-18 Super Hornet, which tops out around Mach 1.6 or 1.8.
Big difference.
Huge difference. And it could climb like crazy, something like 30,000 feet per minute initially. It really shows its roots as that pure interceptor designed to get high and fast.
Blisteringly fast, yeah. Now, it flew for a long time. What about its combat history? Where did it first see action?
Its combat debut was August 1981 over the Gulf of Sidra. 2 U.S. Navy F-14s shot down 2 Libyan Su-22 fitters.
The famous Sidra incident.
That's the one. And they tangled with Libyan MiGs again in 1989, scoring 2 MiG-23 kills that time. Then it played a pretty big role in the first Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm.
What were they doing mostly in Desert Storm?
Mostly combat air patrol, CAP, over the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, protecting the fleet and coalition forces. They also flew escort for strike packages going into Iraq and did some tactical reconnaissance missions with special pods.
Using that fancy radar and sensors.
Exactly. But interestingly, the rules of engagement often limited their ability to use the Phoenix missile at its maximum range.
Why was that?
Because the rules required pilots to get a positive visual identification of a target before shooting in many cases. That often meant getting much closer than the Phoenix's range allowed. Sort of negated that big advantage.
I see.
Although apparently just the powerful emissions from the F-14's AWG-9 radar were often enough to scare off Iraqi pilots. They'd detect the Tomcat's radar painting them and just turn tail and run.
So its reputation preceded it. Did the U.S. lose any Tomcats in that war?
Sadly, yes, one. An F-14A Plus from VF-103 was hit by an Iraqi SA-2 surface-to-air missile during an escort mission.
Were the crew okay?
Both ejected. The pilot was rescued, but the RIO was captured and held as a POW until the war ended. But on the flip side, an F-14 from VF-1 got the Navy's last air-to-air kill of Desert Storm, shooting down an Iraqi Mi-8 helicopter with a Sidewinder.
A helicopter kill. Interesting. Now, what about Iran? We mentioned they fly them. They actually bought them before the revolution, right?
That's a whole fascinating side story. Yes, the Shah's government ordered 79 F-14As before the 1979 revolution. When the regime changed, the U.S. cut off deliveries and support.
But Iran already had quite a few by then.
They did. And during the long Iran-Iraq War in the 80s, those Iranian Tomcats played a really important, sometimes surprising role. Because Iran's other fighters were less capable, they often used the F-14s almost like mini AWACS planes.
Using that powerful radar.
Exactly, using the AWG-9 to scan airspace and direct other fighters. They were also crucial for defending strategic sites in Iran.
Did they get into dogfights? Did they score kills?
Oh, yes. They definitely engaged Iraqi aircraft, and their Phoenix missiles give them a big advantage. There are claims of very high kill ratios, though exact numbers are hard to verify. But Iraqi MiGs also shot down some Iranian F-14s.
Right.
There's even a confirmed kind of tragic case where an Iraqi MiG-23 shot down an Iranian F-14 that was apparently trying to defect. A friendly fire incident from the Iraqi perspective, if you can call it that.
Wow. And keeping those planes flying after the U.S. retired, there must be a massive headache for Iran.
Immense. After the U.S. Navy retired the Tomcat in 2006, getting spare parts became Iran's #1 problem. The U.S. obviously put a strict embargo on parts sales.
Of course.
And even went so far as to shred many of the retired U.S. airframes specifically to stop parts potentially ending up in Iran.
Shredded them, really.
Yep. But Iran has been persistent, reportedly finding parts on the black market, maybe through smuggling. And they also claim to have reverse engineered some systems and even developed their own missiles, like the F-14 90, to keep a number of F-14s flying.
Incredible determination. Let's talk variants. We've mentioned the F-14A. There's a B and a D model, too.
Correct. The F-14B, which was first called the F-14A Plus SAT, basically took the A model and gave it better engines, the General Electric F-110s. This fixed some issues people had with the original TF-30 engines, like reliability and thrust.
So more power, better reliability.
Exactly. Then the F-14D, the Super Tomcat, was the ultimate version. It got the F-110 engines plus a major avionics upgrade. We're talking digital systems, a glass cockpit, and the much more capable AN/APG-71 radar. It was a truly multi-role fighter by then.
Sounds like the definitive Tomcat. Why didn't they build more F-14Ds?
That's a controversial point. In 1989, the Secretary of Defense at the time, Dick Cheney, decided to cancel further F-14D production. Only 37 new ones were built, plus 18 converted from older A models.
Why did he cancel it?
He famously called the F-14 1960s technology, basically saying it was outdated, and even suggested it was just a jobs program keeping Grumman workers employed. Yeah. This was despite the Navy wanting more, and Grumman proposing even more advanced versions, Super Tomcat 21, Attack Super Tomcat, with better ground attack capabilities. That decision really hurt Grumman financially, and some say pushed them towards merging with Northrop later on.
A real shame those advanced Tomcats never happened. But even with that early retirement, its legacy? Wow. Especially the cultural impact, thanks mainly to one movie.
Top Gun. Has to be. 1986. That movie just exploded. It completely changed how the public saw naval aviation, and the F-14 was front and center, the absolute star.
Looked amazing on screen.
Totally. All those flight sequences. The Navy helped make the movie, and apparently recruitment numbers for naval aviators shot way up afterward. The filmmakers even paid the Navy back millions for using the jets.
I read a cool story about a former F-14 RIO, Tom Toomey. He was actually an extra in the original movie.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, I said it's pretty surreal. And that after the movie hit, F-14 crews were treated like rock stars.
I can believe it. That really shows the power of the film. And Toomey later went to the real TOPG and school, right?
It's funny how the movie and reality got intertwined. He apparently said the movie, despite the Hollywood drama, actually did a decent job showing the classroom stuff and the intense flying at TOPGUN. Maybe just didn't capture how utterly exhausting it was.
And the F-14 wasn't just in the original Top Gun, was it? It had that great cameo in Top Gun, Maverick, plus it was in the final countdown, executive decision.
Yeah, its look is just so iconic, instantly recognizable. It even inspired fictional designs like the VF-1 Valkyrie in the Macross anime series.
I totally see that resemblance. Okay, so the U.S. Navy parked its Tomcats for good in 2006. What happened to all those planes?
Well, a lot ended up in museums all over the U.S., which is great. You can go see them, touch history. But as we said, quite a few were deliberately destroyed, shredded, to keep parts away from Iran.
Where can people see them now? Any specific ones? Oh, yeah, lots of places. The USS Intrepid Museum in New York has one. Pacific Aviation Museum in Hawaii. The very first F-14 built is down at the National Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola.
The first one. Cool.
And the last one to officially fly for the Navy is at the Cradle of Aviation Museum on Long Island. And get this, the actual Tomcat used in Top Gun, Maverick, it's on display aboard the USS Lexington Museum ship down in Corpus Christi, Texas.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great that they're being preserved. And, of course, the Iranians are still flying theirs, apparently.
As far as we know, yes, in limited numbers.
And as that YouTube video pointed out, the F-14 lives on very actively in the virtual world, flight sims, like DCS World and Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Absolutely. So even though it's gone from the U.S. military's active roster, the Tomcat's fascination definitely continues in museums and on computer screens worldwide.
So let's wrap this up. The F-14 Tomcat, it really was something else. Came out of that urgent Cold War need, packed with innovations like the swing wings and that amazing Phoenix missile system.
Incredible performance, long service history, saw action in various places.
And then there's the whole cultural phenomenon thing. It just became this icon of speed, tech, and just cool.
It really did. Which leads to maybe a final thought for people listening. When you think about the F-14's legacy and how much aviation has changed since it retired, what actually makes a fighter aircraft truly iconic today in the 21st century? Is it just about the performance specs? Or is there something else, maybe something less tangible, that makes a plane legendary, you know?
That's a really good question to chew on. What makes a legend? Anyway, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the F-14 Tomcat. It's been fascinating.
It really has.
And if you enjoyed this exploration, if you want to get into more topics like this with us, please do us a huge favor. Like, subscribe, and share the channel.
Yeah, your support really helps us keep doing these deep dives and bringing you more content.
It absolutely does. Thanks again for tuning in.